Hi there, it's September the 15th and we continue our journey through the prophecies of Isaiah. We're looking today at chapters 19 through to 21. Chapter 19 is concluding this series of decrees and declarations against various nations, and in this one Isaiah is declaring against the land of Egypt. Now we've seen that all of these nations are under threat from the great Assyrian Empire, which is coming down from the north. And Egypt is no exception to this. Egypt will actually suffer. In fact, not only will Egypt suffer, but it'll suffer internal problems as well. Egyptian will turn against Egyptian. There'll be internal fighting. The waters particularly will fail. There's a number of references in this chapter 19, to the waters, because the waters were so key to the well-being and to the prosperity of Egypt. And so when waters are failing, there's a real problem. But at the end of chapter 19, there's an amazing picture of a coming flowing together of nations, particularly Egypt and Assyria and Israel. There will be a time when these work together, when the Lord is actually raised up, and even Egypt, instead of her many gods which she's worshipped, will worship the Lord. So there's a sign again of this coming messianic king, this coming day of the Lord, which will affect not just Judah, but will affect the surrounding nations as well. And in chapter 20, Isaiah takes on something very personal as a picture of the judgment of Egypt that is coming, and particularly also referring here to Egypt's partnership or Egypt's alliance with the Philistines down on the seaboard, down on the western seaboard of the land of Israel. Isaiah actually goes and acts out the terrible situation that's going to come upon Egypt and Philistines, their allies, and Isaiah goes barefoot and naked for a while to show that the people of Egypt, or the people of Philistia, are going to go barefoot themselves under the oppression of the Assyrians. A very short chapter, very powerful chapter, showing how God sometimes asks the prophets to embody the words that they are bringing. And then chapter 21 kind of changes slightly in that it's a declaration, it's a decree, but it's not against a specific nation. It talks about the desert of the sea. It talks about the great upheaval there's going to be. It talks about the war and the battles that are going to come. Specifically, it does mention the fall of Babylon. And Babylon, we mentioned earlier, is one of those powers that is on the rise and is going to overwhelm Assyria. But even Babylon in its turn is going to be overwhelmed by Cyrus the Great eventually, and the whole thing is going to be turned around. There's a picture of this great melting pot of nations, this great swirling whirlpool of history that is going on as nation moves against nation. But really the overall message is that God knows what is going on. History, after all, is his story. It's not a pointless exercise. And so in all the machinations, in all the movements of the nations, Egypt, Philistia, Assyria, Babylon, God is working out his purposes to bring his messianic king into place, and actually to bring Judah, to bring Jerusalem to the center as the focus of that. Have a very good September the 15th.